where 1 is very poor and 5 is really great, exceptional. And additional notes are helpful because if you rate someone a 1 and I rate them a 5, we want to be able to talk about why we gave them those ratings.
Now, Darian, have you looked at your screen lately?
Aha, okay, well, here we are, ready to go. Thank you. Hey,
Welcome.
Emily.
Yes.
Okay, well, welcome. We're so glad to have you here. I'm Darian DeLue. I am the current president of WILPF US. And I'd like to introduce you to our personnel committee chair is Cece Anderson.
Hi, Cece. Nice to meet you.
And Ellen Thomas is our disarmament issue committee chair.
Hi.
Hi, Ellen. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Very nice.
So we expect that this interview will take about an hour. And thank you very much for your application and being available for this interview today. I apologize, excuse me, for the great delay in proceeding with this. Of course, you know about the hurricane, which made life challenging. And then we've had a difficult time with a lot of conflicts in our schedules in coming up with times that would work for interviews. So we're sorry for the delay in the process that we had hoped to pursue. In addition to all of those problems, it's been a busy time for WILPF and for WILPF volunteers. We are predominantly a volunteer operated organization. So I am just giving you some very basic background information, and there will be a chance for you to ask questions. Our eNews editor works with our IT person in preparing the necessary components. We anticipate having monthly issues, including a mid-December issue, but no January issue. We expect our contractors and our WILPF members naturally to communicate with each other in a mutually respectful and appropriate way. However, we feel we should alert you that we know from past experience that a few of our members do not do that. We ask you or whoever our editor is to alert us if any situation like that arises, and we'll intervene. We apologize in advance. So we'll go ahead with our questions. And as I say, toward the end, you'll have a chance to ask questions of your own. Ellen? Oh, go ahead.
Emily? No, I just said that sounds great. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. So as an editor, what is it that you like most about that kind of work, and what do you like the least?
What do I like most and what do I like least? Let's see. Well, I've always loved just editing in general. It's something that has come naturally to me. You know, I'm thinking back to even like high school English class. I loved like learning grammar, and it's like a brain for my puzzle or a puzzle for my brain to figure out. And my brain just kind of naturally catches a lot of little things very quickly. I tend to just kind of fill that role in a lot of projects that I'm on. And so I think that really lends itself to editing. And so it feels, it's both creative in the sense that I'm like engaging with the writing and the writing process, and also kind of like fulfills the less brain loving side of me too, that's like trying to solve a puzzle and make things work together. So yeah, I've always really enjoyed the process. I've always been the person that people send, you know, cover letters and papers and things like that to edit, and just love it, honestly. What do I like least? I would say, and I try to avoid this as much as possible, but sometimes, you know, when you're working with other people, things can come down to a tight deadline. And it kind of, you know, depends on the group and depends on the project. So I can do it like in a tight time frame. I would much rather do it, you know, in a more spacious way that allows for multiple revisions and things like that. But so I don't love, or like my least favorite part would be when it does come down to a tight deadline, just by the nature of however the project goes. Yeah.
So what do you consider a tight deadline?
I would say like it kind of depends on how big the thing is that I need to edit, I guess. I'm thinking about a project I did with Code Pink. We wrote, and I was served as the primary copy editor on something called the Local Peace Economy Workbook, which is like it's a book that's like this thick, and it was like such a spacious process throughout, and then just the way things came about in the end, we needed to like get it to print within like, you know, I think it was end of last year, so I think it was like 12 to 24 hours, but it was like
Way.
hundreds of pages, you know. And so I did it, and I was happy to do it, and it was a lot, and I had to put down a lot of other things to do it. So I would say like anything within, again, it depends on how long the content is, but anything within like 24 hours, I would say is tight. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cece. Cece?
Hey, I just wanted to ask a couple of things about stress. How is your stress level concerning deadlines and time frames?
Cece, are you looking at the second question?
I don't have it.
Okay, well, you go ahead and answer, Cece. I think it's relevant to this question, right?
So the question is, sorry, do you mind repeating the question? Oh, you're muted, I think. Cece, I'm not able to hear you.
Cece, can you unmute? Hello, C.
Okay,
Okay, I was trying to, you alluded to your stress level. I was just trying to figure out deadlines and time frames and how stressful do you get, or how do you deal with that pressure and trying to meet that time frame?
Yeah, I would say in general, I'm like not like I have plenty of space to be doing this work. I was just kind of alluding to when a project, for whatever reason, you know, maybe someone else doesn't, you know, is running behind on their piece or something like that, and when it comes to the editing part, and then it's a tight turnaround, that can be a little bit stressful. But in general, I don't find this work like particularly stressful. I really enjoy it. You know, it can be tedious at times, but that's part of the work in terms of like making sure everything looks really good, and is like able to be engaged with well with the readers. And then in terms of when I do get into those situations, you know, I try and take a breath, return to my body, you know, put down, make arrangements if I need to cancel plans or whatever, just to like you know, reprioritize basically, with whatever I'm working with. But yeah, I embodiment practices and somatics is something that is a personal interest of mine. So I try to bring that into this work in terms of like, you know, being calm under pressure and under stress. And yeah, because also I know that like I will miss things and make mistakes if I'm operating from that place. So I try to not operate from that place as much as possible.
Okay.
Okay, I'll ask the next question. And Cece, since you don't have the questions in front of you to ask, I guess Ellen and I will ask them. And
if Cece has the chat, we have them at the beginning of the chat.
right. So Cece, if you find the questions and can ask them, we'll invite you to do so. And if you can't, we do have a set of questions. Okay, so Emily, we hope that you will edit for clarity and structure in articles. What other kinds of things do you look for in terms of editing?
In addition to clarity and structure.
Right.
Well, definitely, I mean, in terms of copy editing, the first thing that comes to mind is just like, and maybe this is what you mean by clarity, but in terms of just making sure that things are, I mean, I think a lot of people have like their own orientation towards grammar, but just making sure there's no like typos or really blatant mistakes, just because I think that can be distracting for people. And also it, you know, I'm not sure be on the newsletter where if these pieces go anywhere, but just so that, you know, the writing is taken seriously and it's presented it's presenting the author in the best light possible. So definitely just like grammar and typos and things like that. Clarity, structure, like flow, making sure that it flows well and that it's not too repetitive. And then I would say in terms of like thinking of the newsletter holistically, wanting to make sure that there is a diversity of content being represented, a diversity of ways for people to engage with it, a diversity of voices being represented. Yeah, let's see what else. And also like, and this is something I have to do for my own writing a lot. I can be quite verbose, but just like making sure that there's nothing necessarily superfluous in there, that it's that it's succinct, but as balancing it being succinct and informative at the same time. That makes sense. So that's something, I have to look for in my own writing as well.
Just for your information, the articles that we edit for the newsletter come from our members.
Right.
The newsletter goes out monthly to our members and then is posted on our website for eternity. So
Great.
It's good to make people look good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ellen.
Especially, you know, everyone has a different relationship with writing, and some people are really insecure around it, and but I don't want that to be like a barrier to people like sharing what they want to share.
Hear, hear. Ellen, number 3.
Okay, I'm going to read number 3. I've been taking notes. Well, you sort of covered it. When an article has good potential content, it is so lacking in writing quality, clarity, correct usage to be uneditable. How would you work with such a writer?
Yeah. So I would read what they've submitted and see what I am pulling out as the most important point to make sure I'm understanding what they're trying to say, and then clarify that with them, and hear from them what they're trying to say and see if it matches up, and then hopefully arrive to some sort of clarity and understanding together around, okay, what is trying to be communicated, or what are you trying to communicate through this piece, and then work with them to kind of balance, what's the word I'm looking for, like wanting to maintain as much of their language and their ideas as possible, and also wanting the piece to be understandable to others. So I would go back and forth with them in terms of I'm making suggestions. I'm pretty good at providing one or multiple suggestions for how you might phrase something, and see what feels good to them, and again kind of go back and forth in that process until we kind of arrive at a piece that it feels like they had a hand in. I certainly don't want to I'm not trying to take it. My goal is to not take it over from them and just rewrite it for them. It's to really work with them, understand what they're trying to say, make some suggestions along the way, and make sure that they're comfortable with the piece and feel good about the piece at the end.
So Cece, can you see question number 4?
Yes, we like more of our membership to write for our eNews. We realize, of course, that you don't know our members. Yet we wonder how would you cultivate and encourage, what is this? Whoa, I went too far, sorry. Let me do that
You're
again.
doing fine.
Yeah, but I pressed the button too much.
Would you like
Those
to?
tools and methods include contacts with our committees, chairs, editor. And the editor will have those contact email addresses as well with the branch. Through the branch listserv and by reaching out to prior writers of branch news items, plus the possibility of emails, telephone calls, texts, you name it, all at one time maybe. So the question is, we would like for our membership, the members in the membership, to become more involved in writing in the newsletter, eNews that we have. So how would you think we could encourage them to do that?
Great, thanks. I'm just gonna read what's in the chat as well. Oh, it looks like it just went to me.
Because I listed that, we got emails, text, editing,
Mhm.
communication.
I just put what you were reading her in the chat so she could read through it, because it's
Okay,
a long
okay.
one.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ellen. I appreciate that.
Welcome.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have a really good base and foundation for me to work from in that, in terms of all of those contacts.
Yeah.
I would definitely start out by reaching out to you have, committees in different cities, correct? Or like volunteers in different cities or I don't know, chapters.
Yeah.
And so I would reach out to the chapters. I'm not sure, I'd have to see what's given to me on the list, whether that's reaching out to just the chapter leads to then send to their chapters, or, if I'm able to reach out to all the chapters directly, and just introduce myself as the newsletter editor, and, let them know that I think just establishing a relationship first and foremost is helpful, just so they know that they can come to me if they have ideas or questions, and just introducing myself a little bit more. And then also making an explicit ask of, we'd love to get more voices in our newsletters. If you have ideas, if you have articles already written, like, please let us know. So definitely reaching out to chapters, I think, would be a great way to start. I don't know if you have a list of people who have already written, if that's like kept in its own, they've obviously shown a willingness to write and submit. So I'd reach out to them as well. I know that's not necessarily like expanding the list, but just keeping them engaged, and then also, asking if they would encourage other volunteers to write as well. I'm just pulling up the question here to make sure I'm somewhat familiar with like stewarding a listserv, and so just kind of keeping that active with the branches. And yeah, very happy to reach out to people via like emails and texts and phone calls. I know a lot of people my age are averse to phone calls, but I'm very willing to do it. I actually prefer phone calls sometimes to text. So yeah, for me, it would
sometimes
probably,
it can be, Emily, before I'm sorry to cut you off. Sometimes it can be just related with different time zones and different types of regions, and contacting people.
right. Yeah, and for me, just personally, in terms of organization and make sure I'm staying up on it too, I'd probably just like set aside some time every week or every month, depending on what's needed, just to do outreach and make sure that that is continuing to be like grown and stewarded, and not, because I think it's easy to let that kind of fall by the wayside in the midst of like editing, and in the midst of something that has a deadline, whereas this wouldn't necessarily have a deadline. So I think it's, for me personally, just in terms of how I work, it would be important to set aside some like concrete time for that every week or every month or something like that.
Okay.
Thank you. And in your work, when you've been asked to edit something that conflicts with your own opinions or views, how have you handled that?
That's a really good question. I'm trying to think of a time when that
Sure.
has happened. I don't know if I've actually been in that situation that often, but how I would address that. I mean, I'm definitely not one for censorship. And so my most important, especially, you know, like given the nature of this work, is this is voices of WILPF and not my own. And so if I had a concern that it would conflict with the organization's values, that's something I would come to you for. But if it's conflicting with my own personal, I know that that's just personal, and I would still very much like edit it in the same way that I would any other article, and keep my views out of it. Again, unless I was wondering if it was also in conflict with like the organizations. I don't know if that's happened very often, but and yeah, just want to make sure again that it's being presented in the best light. That would be my focus, rather than I'm not trying to insert my views or perspectives into the piece.
What
Thank
do you
you.
mean by conflict with other organizations?
Like if someone submitted something to the newsletter that I thought your organization wouldn't want going out in the newsletter because it conflicts with your values, that would be a conversation that I would bring to you and that we would have.
No, but then after that, you said that or conflicts, I don't know whether this would ever happen, but with other organizations.
Oh no, I said, or I meant at least your organization, not others.
Okay.
With Will, yeah.
I must have misunderstood what you were saying.
No worries.
Thank you.
Ellen.
Yes. So have you encountered any difficult authors or bosses in the past? And how did that feel to you? And how did you handle it?
I would say the difficulties that I've often had with like supervisors has been that they're often just so busy. And sometimes I need something from them, or, you know, they're editing something that I'm doing. I need their approval to move forward on something. And so I'm kind of, you know, waiting. Yeah, I've definitely had that experience in a few different positions that I've been in. And I would say I do some freelance copywriting and editing right now, and I would say I've encountered a similar dynamic there, where I'm waiting for the person that I work for to kind of get me the next round of things or something like that. And so for me, it's a matter of not like understanding where they are and what they're coming from. Generally, I have an idea of kind of what the other things are that they're working on, and can, you know, have a lot of empathy for them being really busy, and also not being afraid to send another message and be like, hey, have you gotten a chance to look at this yet? You know, I'd like to move forward. Obviously, always very respectfully. So yeah, not being afraid to check back in when I need to move forward on something and I'm waiting. In terms of, I'm trying to think of other difficulties. That has definitely been the main one. I think I tend to work for very passionate people who have their hands in a lot of things, who are very busy. But I've really lucked out to have like really great, generally really great experiences with supervisors, and I'm trying to think.
How about difficult authors?
Um,
Uncooperative, short-tempered, whatever.
hmm. I'm not thinking of a specific experience I've had with that, but again, I think I would approach it very similarly to how I described: one, being under a deadline, and two, working with someone who, you know, a piece that's really uneditable is like, and this is, I try to be really disarming in my communication and assume the best intentions, and not escalate the situation. And again, with that, I bring in my own like personal embodiment and somatics practices to stay in my body, stay calm. But yeah, I would work with them as much as I can. And then if it were a situation where I felt like I needed to, I think you said something about this in the beginning, bringing it to you if there's an issue, then I would bring it to you. But yeah, understanding, you know, just coming back to like, what are the goals here? And it's to, as far as I know, you know, create an informative and an engaging newsletter for people. And like, can we do that together? And, you know, I try and keep my ego, especially in this work where there is so much feedback being like given and received, like keep my ego out of it as much as possible. I think that's best for everyone.
CC, number 7.
Okay. WILPF is an activist peace and justice organization, and our eNews stories frequently relate to issues that important for the editor to recognize if an article is inconsistent with WILPF's principles. What is your experience, background in peace and justice activism and or movements?
Yeah. So actually for the last year and a half, I've worked for Code Pink, which is another feminist, women-led peace and anti-war and anti-militarism organization. And so have been really steeped in that world for, in terms of my day-to-day, for the last year and a half, like very much in that. And so feel very like comfortable and familiar in that space. And then just in terms of personally, you know, I've been committed to anti-war work and peace and justice work for a very long time. I used to live in Spokane, Washington, and was fairly active with PJALS there, Peace and Justice Action League of Spokane. They're a really cool organization. And then, yeah, continue to, I have a really great group of friends I live in Denver, that we all like support each other in terms of, you know, showing up for protests and letting each other know what events are going on in the community around like peace and justice work. And I do a lot of work too with leaders like, I don't know if you're familiar with Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams or Resma Menachem, and they do a lot of like racial justice work that focus a lot, they like integrate a lot of thematics work with racial and social justice work. And so I've done a lot of like workshops and webinars and in-person things with them. And so, yeah, I feel like my heart and soul is in this work for, you know, collective liberation, as I like, you know, as a word that I use a lot for it. And yeah, I would be really excited to continue to use my skills to support that movement.
Thank you.
So is there anything you feel is important to an editor that we didn't already ask you?
Let's see. I think we touched on a lot of it. I would say like the most important thing, being really thorough, which I think, you know, came up, being organized, especially, you know, I know I'd be working with someone else in terms of formatting it, but especially, and this is a question I have that we can talk about later, but wondering like who I'd be working with, And like, it sounds like this might be a little bit more of an independent role. Obviously, it's still soliciting a lot of, working with people as I solicit. But as it is independent, if it is independent, being really organized on my end in terms of deadlines. And that's something that I really, again, really enjoy. I use a system often called Airtable to just kind of, for project management, keep myself on deadlines. I've brought that to once I learned about it, pretty much every role that I've had. So yeah, being really organized, being thorough, clear communication, but I feel like we touched on that. Let's see. I think I think this is just important to any job really, but especially in a contractor role, just like being willing to ask questions and being willing to say when you don't know something or don't understand something, which I think that's a muscle I've had to develop, but I think I've gotten a lot better at asking for help or admitting when I don't know something. But yeah, I think that's especially important in like an editor contractor role when I'm not necessarily in the day-to-day operations of the organization, but I'm still like supporting it in a very significant way.
Thank you. Ellen?
Yeah.
So we are hoping to have a long-term editor. And we wonder how likely that is to mesh with your situation.
Yeah, when you say long-term, what does that mean to you?
What does it mean to you?
That's a good question. I guess and maybe I misunderstood the job description, but I kind of, maybe I just inferred this, but was thinking like this was like a year-long contract. But I mean, that's a good question. What does long-term mean to me? Yeah. I'm just like, yeah, very.
So you're willing to commit for a year?
Oh, for sure.
And how about if you enjoy yourself and you feel like you're getting things done, that you stay on for a while longer? Does that fit into your life plan?
Yeah, for sure. I am kind of at a point right now where I am just reorganizing my life a little bit, and to be able to focus on some work that I really want to focus on. And with that, I'm hoping to, and I think that will be like a longer term process. And with that, I'm hoping to have more like copy editing work like this feels like it fits into that really well. And so yeah, definitely like a year, and then very like open to beyond that if it feels like if you feel like it's a good fit, and I feel like it's still a good fit too. Yeah.
Thank you. Cece.
Okay, Emily, do you have any other obligations or commitments? And when could you start possibly?
I can start as early as November.
That's Friday.
Yes. Yeah, like I said, I'm a little bit in transition right now. I am personally just I'm interested in doula work. And so I'm kind of reorganizing my life a little bit to be able to explore that a bit more. And I actually just finished up my work with Code Pink last week. And so I am very open right now. Yeah, could start as early as November. And have other obligations and commitments in terms of other paid work and like some courses I'm doing, and again wanting to explore that doula work more, but have, as I move forward, like should this position be an opportunity, it would very much like fit this in, like make sure that there's time and space in my schedule for this, because I know it will definitely take some dedication and time, especially in the beginning as I am like stewarding those relationships.
I just wanted to clarify that we would have liked to have gotten a decision back in October, and now we're just getting started with the interviews, which are going to take us a little while. So in the ideal world, we would be asking you to start, if we choose you, in about mid-November, but at the moment that may not be so realistic. So
Okay.
stay tuned.
Thanks for letting me know. No, that's really helpful to know.
And
Yeah, I know.
if you are tempted by another job, let us know.
Okay. Sounds great.
And now's the big chance I promised you. Do you have questions for us?
Yeah, I'm sure that I do. I think I wrote a few down. Let me just,
Sure.
let's see. I guess one question I have is, in terms of editing, either based on past experience or just your desires for this role, how much of the editing are you hoping to be like copy and clarity and structure, like you said, and then how much would I be editing for content?
What do you mean by editing for content?
I guess like in terms of like fact checking and things like that. You know.
So I'm probably the one here with most experience with the eNews. We generally haven't felt the need for fact checking. However, one of the content elements that would come up is we don't want to violate anyone's copyrights. There's a very limited amount, and we edge toward very limited, of quoting that could be done with proper reference to the original source, but we try to paraphrase things a lot of the time. We have had a situation in the past where we had to pay a settlement when there was an accidental violation of copyright. So we're pretty careful about that now. But otherwise, Ellen, CC, can you think of any situations where there would be editing for content?
Well, I suppose reading the stories carefully, and as you described, you would discover holes in the story where you would help to fill them in, and or make suggestions for helping to fill them in or ask questions, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you think that something is factually inaccurate and you want to check it out, and you discover that it is inaccurate, I don't think there's anything wrong with you talking to the author and saying, you know, I read this and such, and are you sure you really want to have this in here? You know, it's important to keep everything. There's a couple of things that I'd like to mention. One is that we're a 501c3.
No.
501c4. That's right, 501c4. And as such, we can talk about political ideas, but we can't support any persons. So anybody who wants to do any rah-rah, whoever, we can't do that in the eNews, right? And is there anything like that, Darian, that you can think of?
I think the C4 thing is the only thing that really comes up. The only other thing I would mention is you referred to deadlines, Emily, and our members are not particularly good at deadlines. I'm sure you've encountered that before, so that sometimes you may have to delay a story till the next issue because there just won't be time to confer with the author to the extent needed. Frequently, even generally, the editor edits stories with a fairly light hand and doesn't even check back with the authors, just prints a story because the authors know that they will be edited. Obviously, if it's bigger edits or more challenging work needed, that's a different situation.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and that actually gets at one of the other questions I wanted to ask, which was like, generally, what is the process and how, of editing in terms of how much back and forth needs to happen? But it sounds like generally that's not typical.
Yeah, sometimes just one communication back and forth. We had a situation with one article where it was an interesting, informative article, but not particularly connected to any current events, and as news, not really newsy. So there was a lot of back and forth to help the author come up with ways to find how it's.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then in terms of soliciting, it sounds like it's kind of an open call and people write about what they want to write about. I'm not, making suggestions for content, or is that coming from you all?
So I'll also let Ellen and Cece comment, but generally we have rules about who may write what. And that's specific, that the newsletter isn't a bunch of op-eds. It's reports on branch activities, and those have to come from the branches involved. And reports on our issue committees, our political activist organs, talking about what they're doing, and that has to come from the issue committee involved. And then other articles that may come from our members of the board or certain other national leadership. But if one doesn't fit into one of those categories, that's usually not something we have space for. It's not immutable. We've considered some options in the past, but it is within those kinds of constraints that we generally work, and we're open to suggestions. But yes, soliciting is to solicit articles from those groups of people. And if, for example, we have a Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee, if they hadn't written an article in a few months, you might contact them and solicit what are the latest actions you recommend, or what's the news you want to emphasize in your eNews article or something.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Now, Ellen is an issue committee co-chair. Did you want to add anything to that, Ellen?
One thing I heard from Cheryl, who has been Cheryl Spencer is co-chair along with myself and Diane Blay from Virginia. Cheryl's from California and I'm from North Carolina. I used to do everything for a little while, and I'm glad I don't do that anymore. But anyway, Cheryl has been keeping up with, what was the question again? I distracted myself.
Soliciting articles and who can write them, or on what topics?
Oh, Cheryl was issues something every month, talking about what the various subgroups of the Disarm Committee are doing. And when she does that, she sometimes has not been able to publish them because there are so many submissions coming in. So I suspect you're not going to have to do a heck of a lot of soliciting, because these people already know that we want articles from them. And but you need to tell them how you want them to do things, in a friendly way. Thank you.
And Cece, you're involved with a branch. Do you have any comments from the branch perspective?
Yes, I'm so excited. We have revised the Atlanta Metro branch, and we want to put an article in the eNews soon, as I can get back with Peggy on that. I don't think we should have any problems with data or statistics and numbers and, that type of thing, as far as you have to make sure you give credit to the person whom you got that information from. Basically, what I've seen, we don't do any graphs. You know what I mean? When I say charts, graphs, data type stuff. So it's always, it seems like it would be information concerning what's going on in the region, what's going on in the different branches or chapters, committees and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And photographs.
And photographs, that's true.
And the photographs need to have captions when they're submitted. And so if you don't get captions, you ask for them.
Okay.
And just to complicate that, generally we ask our, certainly branch members, when they're submitting a photograph, it should be a photograph someone in the branch or friend or family member has taken who is given credit in the photograph and states that we have permission to use the photograph. For other illustrations, in the past, we asked people to track down their own illustrations, but we had so much difficulty checking on the copyrights on that, that now we ask the eNews editor and we tell you, we have a subscription to a photo and illustration service, and we get a bulk rate basically. So the editor finds a photo from that, or an illustration or image from that service. To every article should be illustrated in some way. We're hoping to update our website so that those photos and illustrations will then be really postable to social media in a constructive way, but that's not the case at the moment.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's really helpful to know. That makes it a lot easier for everyone, or for the editor at least to know that, you know, this group of photos is good to go, and you know, cool. In terms of another question, what have been some of the challenges that the past editor or past editors have encountered in the past, in the process, or what have been, some of the hardest parts for them that you've observed, obviously?
Personalities.
Of writers.
What was that? Personalities of writers.
Deadlines,
Deadlines.
commitment.
Yeah. Deadlines. Yep. People just not getting things in until a day or 2 or 3 after the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And although some months we have more articles, we try to limit it to 10 articles plus 1 announcements piece per month. Sometimes we have had more into that.
You're breaking up,
But
Derek.
lately, and I think it's part of the declining role of volunteers, had that many at all. So fine issue. And off. Can you hear me now? No.
Still
No,
a little broken up.
Try it again now. Well, you've gone.
Go ahead without me.
No,
I
you're
can-
fine now. You're fine.
I-
Your face
Okay, I'll keep
froze,
my
but now you're fine. Go ahead.
I'll keep my video off to help. Sometimes we just more lately, we have not had enough articles to justify an issue. So that's become a new problem and may be related to the situation of the decline in volunteers.
Okay. So yeah, it sounds like solicitation, deadlines, and personalities. When you say personalities, in terms of, are you referring to like just going back and forth with someone around edits?
Some people are very rude in their communication.
Not many,
And
not many.
if you encounter that, that's one of
Occasional.
those things
Yeah.
to tell us about. You
Okay.
shouldn't have to deal with it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm.
I think that's all my questions. I can't remember exactly what it said in the job description now about the amount of hours anticipated, but is that still accurate? I think it's.
That's a good question. And honestly, it's paid by the newsletter, not by the hour.
Right.
So there's the issue of how much time it takes you to edit something and the issue of how much time you want to put into soliciting. So those are factors that to some extent are under your control. And also, we do want your feedback. If you find that it just doesn't seem to be a realistic process to you, because we're not editors and we're not doing the soliciting, so we don't have that clear an idea of what we're asking of you.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in terms of, you know, it kind of depends how quickly I am able to edit something or how much time I spend on it. The last question that I have that I just remembered was, can you describe a little bit more about what the process is between me editing everything and collecting everything and it going up on the website? I know I'd be working with an IT person to do that.
We will provide additional details, but basically you provide a proofread version of both the email that will go out, which has little intro bits for each article, and we can eventually provide you with a link to the archives so you can see kind of what we're talking about. So that's the basic email listing articles, and part of your exciting role is to decide what sequence to put the articles in. Often that's something that the editor checks with the current president to get input on, because we may have certain articles we really want to highlight. But the basic email with the bits on each article and then the sort of read more after each bit. The bit is usually the opening sentences, might be slightly tweaked in order to better represent the rest of the article, and then submit copy for each completed article along with the image that goes with it and any items that are going to be linked into it, which aren't exactly links, but you know, that kind of thing. And the IT person then puts those into the format of the actual email going out and the actual web page, which then the editor proofreads to make sure that things didn't creep in along the way or get past both of you. And once those are done, then the eNews goes to print, so to speak.
Cool.
So
that makes, yeah.
Usually in the past, editors have, depending on your own schedule, allowed 3 to 5 days for the editing and preparation and proofreading process, so that if you're able to turn in the copy on a Monday, then depending on your situation, let me try again. If the deadline is on a Monday, depending on your situation, you'd have the copy to the IT person by Wednesday or Thursday or even Friday. The IT person usually needs a day to then do their thing, and then comes the final proofreading, and then it goes out.
Okay.
And the IT person, and we hope you, but it's up to you, tends to work a Monday through Friday week. So things that don't get in by Eastern time hours for a standard business day, Monday through Friday, roll over to the next week.
Okay. That's helpful to know. And yeah, that makes sense. That, yeah, that process is fairly familiar to me. And I do some e-newsletters right now, and yeah, know exactly what you're talking about in terms of like the intro text, but tweaking it a little bit. Yeah, I have a lot of experience with that, and always good to do a final read once it's been formatted, because in my experience, sometimes whoever's doing the design, you know, when they're copying and pasting or however they do it, something gets missed. They miss a word or a sentence or something, and yeah, always good to do another read through. Does anyone else from like any of you or anyone from the board read it over as like need to approve it before it goes out? No. Okay. Okay.
And
Emily,
mostly
I just emailed you the May eNews.
Okay,
So
thanks. Yeah, and I
that-
think I found them on the website, so I think I have taken a look at a few.
But this is the email, and you might be interested in seeing how that is laid out, because Darian spoke about the little pieces on the first page leading to the articles. And so this is an example of what that is.
Great, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'll just sort of wrap up by saying it is very likely to take us a solid month to complete the interviews, which I apologize for, but it seems to be the best we can do. So don't despair. We will communicate with you when we have something to communicate. And
Okay.
if you get impatient, we won't mind if you follow up. Just be patient to get a response.
Thank you.
And I would just like to add personally that we would really, this is definitely not required. You might want to wait until after, but I would love to invite you to join WILPF, because I think you have just the right kind of energy.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Thank you. Great. Well, yeah, I'll keep an eye out on my email and totally understand that, I know it takes a lot to coordinate several people's schedules and then review. I just went through that process kind of on the other end myself, and it's a lot to review all those applications. So
Say hi to friends in Code Pink.
I will. Yeah, I was wondering if any of you were connected to them.
I've been getting the emails about the peace thing. I can't even think of it, the way of life of peace. And I've been very impressed with those.
The local peace economy?
Yeah, I guess that's what it's
Oh
called.
yeah, that was me. I was writing that.
Nicely
so
done.
fun. Oh, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, it was, bittersweet to leave that, but I think I'm really excited with who we left it with. I think they have skills that I didn't, and we'll be able to take the project to. It was always kind of a short-term project anyway, for me, but just in terms of like how I was hired on and what I was hired on for. But yeah, I'm really excited to see where they all take it. So,
Cool.
but happy that that it's getting out there. So, yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to have our own little confab, so we're going to ask you to go away in a polite way.
Sounds great. Totally understand. Thank you
Hope
all.
to
Thank you
see
all
you
for your
again.
time. Nice to meet you
Thank
all.
you for yours.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, I'll just start off by saying I was impressed. I think we did a good job at keeping a good pace because we have limited time in everyone's schedule for these interviews. So thank you all. Any other questions or comments right off?
I think she was fairly good. I mean, considering what we've been through and what we deciphered with all these applications.
Personally, I'd like to hire her right off the bat. I don't even want to go through that whole rigmarole. I think she's perfect, and I think we might lose her.
Well, it sounded like she's pretty open to being patient, and I think we really do need to interview at least a few other candidates.
Yeah,
Because
I know. Legally,
well, not just legally, but for our own benefit. She may glow all the more brightly in comparison, or we might be swept off our feet by someone else, but she certainly seems good.
okay, so let's consider who it is that we're going to meet. I may be not right now if you have something else in mind, CC or Barry.
Well, the first thing I wanted to confirm is availability, because we can't set up interviews until we have confirmation of availability.
Right.
So CC, did this time today work for you?
Yeah,
And would the same time work for you on Thursday afternoons?
pretty much, yeah. Because if I get off at 4:30 or 5, that'll give me, hello?
Yeah.
I don't see you. Yeah, that'll give me pretty much time to get home and get settled and log on and everything.
The
Great.
problem is that this Thursday is Halloween, so
Oh,
Trick or treating.
I can send out a letter to, you're gonna be trick or treating?
Oh, no.
do you get trick or treaters in your area? Is that something that you need to be on demand for at 6 o'clock your time?
I keep the lights out.
Okay.
So that's not a conflict for you. How about you, Ellen?
No, it's not a conflict for me.
And for me, it's afternoon, so there's no trick or treaters.
Yeah.
So that's good
Okay.
news. It's unfortunate that we are asking our interviewees to abandon their trick or treaters, but I think they might be willing, or they might not be.
Okay,
So-
so
How many more do you think you have in mind of doing?
At least 4 more.
So the total of 5.
Yeah.
The reason
Possibly
I'm
more,
asking is because, go ahead.
just possibly more depending on how we feel about the ones we interview.
Yeah.
But so I'm trying to pull up the list that I had, and I'll pull it up again.
I
Of-
had a list.
it's the
the-
list that's in the email. No.
The
Different.
list of prime candidates.
Yeah,
And
I think it was about 4 or 5. I think, what did we do? We started out with 10 or 12 or something like that.
well, we start out with about 100, but
No. I mean, to narrow it down.
oh, it was more than even that, but
Because Ellen, I believe,
Yeah, I was like 20. Yeah.
yeah, okay.
so I believe, Ellen, you contacted Vanessa Taylor and got no response at all.
Right. No response from Vanessa Taylor.
Okay, so I think,
We have 2 others other than Michael. One is Cassia Thompson and one is Jessica Kaplan.
right, I think it would be reasonable to go ahead and contact the 2 of them, offering them this coming Thursday. Let me check my calendar for surprise conflicts because, oh, let's not do it
Let's do
Monday,
it.
the day before the election.
No.
I'm
That's not
hoping to be campaigning. And others
You're
might
hoping to
as
do
well
what, Darian?
be campaigning,
Oh, okay.
not for WILPFers. But
Yeah.
so Thursday is a possibility, and a week from Thursday, as long as it's at this time, is a possibility. And Monday, the 11th, is a holiday, Veterans Day, but is that an issue for anyone?
No, it's not an issue for me. I'm just wondering with these students whether, or these young people, whether they're gonna be available on Halloween and
Well, if they're not, then they'll say, pick a different time. And we're offering them 3 options, and they can
All
say,
right, well, let's do them 1, 2, 1, 2. And so we have, I can try calling Vanessa Taylor. We've got all their phone numbers. We don't have to do this by email.
well, that's true. I would say, I think you could go ahead and call Vanessa and start off by emailing the other 2. And then if somebody snaps up a time, take that time away from the others. It's just, I'm trying to move this along as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to do Thursday Halloween, with Friday work?
I would rather do it on Halloween, partly because I have personal commitments on Friday afternoons.
Okay. So we just stay with Thursday.
Yep,
10:31, and Monday is the what?
the 4th. But we're not doing Monday, the 4th,
Oh,
because that's the day before Election Day,
Thursday,
the
So-
7th,
11/7,
and then 11/11.
and then Monday or Thursday that week, because.
So that's a Monday, a Thursday, and, excuse me, a Thursday, another Thursday, and then a Monday. Yeah. We could, I don't know, maybe would Wednesday, the 6th work for people?
Yeah,
CC, would that work for you?
Can't do Wednesdays.
Wednesday, the 6th is good?
Can't do Wednesdays.
You're
Next.
saying you cannot do Wednesdays?
Oh, you mean what time? The same times? I have
Yeah.
to make sure
Yeah.
I'm off at 7 though, because I have another Zoom.
Oh, okay, so Wednesday wouldn't work. Or you're saying you could do it later?
no, she has a 7 Zoom.
Yeah.
So we'd have to have it done within an hour.
Yeah,
Is that? Okay, and that works for you, CC?
yeah. As long as it's between that, what is it?
3:45, excuse me, 5:45 and 6.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that works because we've had a chance now to talk a little. And just any other questions or comments about this interview process, I'll just say that the reason I'm trying to stick to the same questions is so that when we come to comparing the candidates, we're comparing apples to apples.
What do you mean?
I mean, if we start asking different questions of different people, then we're obviously going to have different information about some candidates than others. And we shouldn't disadvantage a candidate for not answering a question
mhm.
that they didn't have.
Right.
Or they might feel slighted.
So I made notes on my thing, and I'll send you a copy of it. And if you want to add notes to it,
I'm going to ask you not to do that, and I'll explain why.
yeah,
After we've completed whatever interviews we're going to do, then we're going to have a discussion of our different scores on the candidates. We'll start off by all emailing each other the total numerical score for each candidate.
tell me about the score again. How does that work?
Okay, each question, you're going to score the person on a range of 1 to 5. And sometimes that doesn't make so much sense. For example, the first question we had about, well, now I'm not seeing the first question, about,
As an editor, what do you like most?
right, that's not the kind of thing you can really score someone on in terms of we're not going to criticize them for liking or not liking something, but the whole way they answer and
Right.
what that reflects about their approach to editing. You would give them a 1 to a 5, where 1 is very poor and 5 is really great. And then you're going to add up. We have 5, whoops, sorry. No, we have 7 questions that are scored, but 8, 9, 10, and questions for us are not scored. That's information for us to consider. But we have questions 1 through 7. So there's a maximum points possible for any candidate of 35 points. When we're all done interviewing, and the reason I don't want to share notes in advance is I don't want to prejudice ourselves until we get to that discussion and we're having a really shared open discussion. Because if I read your comments, that's going to shade my impressions. Whereas if we share thoughts in discussion, that's a very different process. So each of us, when we're all done, let us say we have 5 candidates. Then we're each going to list each candidate by name and the points we gave that candidate, the total. Then we'll meet and we'll start with the candidates who got the highest scores, and we'll talk about those candidates. And if there's a substantial difference in scores, somebody gave them 33 and someone else gave them 12, we'll look at the individual questions and talk about, okay, how did you come up with that and why and so forth. And that's where we'll really be considering the candidates all at once and in detail. And that's where our notes will come in handy, because if I gave somebody a 2, my notes will say, well, they didn't answer very completely, or the answers they gave were superficial, or whatever I'm going to say. Whereas if I gave them a 5, I'll say, well, they showed a lot of insight when they said this and such, and this reflects a lot of experience and so forth. So we'll each justify our answers when there's a discrepancy among us, and that will lead us to making the decision. And we'll have a numerical way to, if someone says to us, well, you were prejudiced against this person for improper reasons, we'll say, well, look, this is how we scored them, and we did our best to not be subjective, but to be objective. So does that make sense? And do you understand what I'm saying?
It sounds like something that a teacher would have put together.
It wasn't me, but I have embraced it.
But let me ask you this.
Yes.
In the end point, once we done all the selecting and choosing and hiring, but before the hiring, will the general membership, will the board also be involved?
Well,
I
I left
will
out.
you have to explain to the board what ifs?
Okay, first, I left out an important step. Once we think we've made a decision about who we want to hire, or suppose there are 2 candidates that are very close and we're trying to choose between them, we will check their references, because references can be really important, and we'll talk about that when we get there. So the scoring plus the references will help us decide. Once we've decided on a candidate, then we will go to the board. I think, Cece, as personnel chair, you get to be the one who tells the board about it. And in executive session, well, frankly, I'm trying to remember if we've given the board a voice on this in the past. I don't know if we've done that or not. I think we just kind of tell the board who we hired, but I don't remember. And
That's my favorite question, because I don't know if they have any input or should have any input or would like to have input, and then stir that pot up again, Ellen, for another 30 days.
yeah, we don't want to wait till a board meeting and the board didn't interview them or look at their resumes or
There's no
anything.
reason for the board to be involved in the hiring.
Yeah.
That's your job, Darian, and with the help of the personnel committee.
So, yeah, I think we make a final decision, and then if there are issues with that decision later, we have to deal with them.
Yeah. I hope I didn't do the wrong thing by talking about personalities, but we lost some good people because they weren't prepared for it. So
right, that's why that's in the warnings in the beginning and in the questions. Exactly.
Well, that's why I was asking about the stress level. You know,
yeah.
how do you
Yeah.
deal with stress and deadlines and inconsistencies and, you know, input from different people from around the region and different time zones or what have you. Anything is subject to happen.
Sometimes people are just in a really bad mood.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Ellen, I just want to really thank you for contacting the other applicants, Vanessa and the next 2. And then we'll also interview Michael, because we can't compare him to the others without the interview questions. We know him.
Yes, and also we could be sued.
Right, exactly. Well, I don't know if we could be sued. I'm not quite sure how labor law works, but it's good practice to
I
treat
think
everyone.
I would say
if somebody is qualified and applies for the job, you shouldn't say no for any reason. I mean, you know, for the transgender or male or whatever, you know,
Oh, right, right.
that's what I'm
We want
thinking,
to consider people in an equal way.
right?
Yeah, because it comes back to bite you, because they can always say you did or didn't because you discriminated against me, or you're prejudiced or biased or some of all the above.
And of
Yep.
course, if we decide not to hire Michael, we're gonna have to let him down.
Justify.
Let him down gently, but I think that, you know, if he's a smart guy and he'll be working with this person, and so I
You don't
suspect
want any
he'll figure
conflict.
out really fast, you know, that this is a really good person, so.
And you don't want any conflicts.
And we don't want conflict, we want them working together harmoniously, yeah.
So any questions about the process, any suggestions for changes? Because we're going to be on a tighter schedule next time we do this.
Well, one other thing, Darren and Ellen, did you understand or did you hear the comment Emily made? Well, if you know, I have to report to the, what did she
Oh.
say? You remember when she kept making that comment?
Report to whom?
Do you,
Oh, because she's working for him?
She's
Yeah.
not working for them anymore.
Oh,
no. When she was saying, oh yeah, but I won't be the only one making that final decision or edit. Once I edit it, someone else will be.
Oh, yeah, she's accustomed to a different structure. We don't do that at all in WILPF. She doesn't wait on anyone because there's nobody above her who says, I mean, if there were some extremely unusual situation that hasn't occurred in the last 5 years, then maybe somehow I'd see the story in advance, which I rarely have, and I'd say, wait, you're not going to do that story until we change it. But if you're talking about what I think you're talking about, she was saying she's been delayed because people who were above her and from whom she needed a response were
Yeah,
too
but I
busy.
thought it was 2 people in that position before what's the girl name resigned? Quick. Who was that she was reporting to? I just thought maybe it was 2 people in this position. What's the guy?
There's Glenn, our IT person, and that's all I can think of.
Oh, okay. Maybe I got it wrong. But I just thought maybe she says, oh, you know, I won't be the last one to make the decision. Whatever. Okay, good. So scratch that.
well, one thing that we can do, I recorded it. I suppose I can stop recording it, can I?
Well, this discussion is good for
It's
Shilpa to
important,
hear.
yeah,
Has
right.
questions.
Yeah.
So Ellen, you can send the discussion to Shilpa, the link, the
Yeah.
recording. Great. And give her an idea as to by when she needs to be done with it so that you don't have a storage
Well,
problem.
you tell me. Oh, well, yeah, I'll tell
Yeah,
her.
I'm talking about, I mean, it should be within
Well,
3.
yeah, I'm doing all sorts of stuff and juggling them, and I can tell you. The sooner the better.
So that's good to tell her, but I think she needs a firm deadline as well. So today's Monday, you could say by Wednesday evening. Would that work for you?
Well, I don't have anything coming up until November the 7th, so,
Well, we're going to get several interviews with any luck, so,
right.
And then we got the holidays coming.
well, we're going to finish this before the holidays. Absolutely.
I'll see what I can, if it starts to look like they're telling me I have to have to get rid of something, then I will, and I don't feel comfortable, I will download everything myself, and I can send them by WeTransfer or upload them to the cloud or something.
But
So-
ideally, we can avoid all of that. I mean, she shouldn't need more than a couple, 3 days to listen to a 1-hour recording,
And
even.
any of you want, yeah, right, and
I'm not gonna have time.
whatever I receive from Zoom in the way of AI companion stuff, I will send on to all. Which is the links and the discussion, what do you call it?
The transcript.
The transcript and the,
Chat.
We don't need the chat.
no, not the chat. Well, I'll send it and then you'll see. Okay.
Okay, I'm not
Sorry,
gonna want,
my brain just locked up. I've had a really busy day, so.
I understand. I won't even tell you what my day's been like. I don't think any AI summary would be appropriate. I really think that would be a mistake because the AI adds its own weird slant to things.
Okay. All right.
I think the recording speaks for itself. We're not trying to make a transcript of it. We're not trying to, make minutes. We're just listening and thinking about it and taking our own few notes and giving the numerical score with notes to explain how we came up with that score a little bit. But this is not going to be a perfect scientific process. It's obviously going to be a score that we think makes sense for whatever.
Okay, it'll be an interesting process. If we can communicate with each other, and I do want to say, Cece, that it was really, really hard to reach you, and you, I believe that your voicemail isn't working. Is that correct, Erin?
Well,
Yes.
Cece, what is going on?
Well, number one, I was out of the country for a week and a half.
Oh,
And then I thought I sent an email, but anyway, yeah. And then my phone has its own tendencies to erase and remove names and numbers and don't ring. And I guess it's time for me to get a new phone, but I can't afford it.
so what's the best way for us to back up a phone call or to get a response from you?
Text?
Still call me or text me.
Does
I'm
it,
going to the shop tomorrow to see exactly what's wrong with this ringer.
okay, but
And-
I believe that I think maybe your voicemail is full, so you might want to
Okay,
empty
probably
that.
have to check that because I've been gone so long.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's been full at least the last time I called. And Cece, could I make an appointment with you for us to talk about the personnel committee? Because things are developing fast and we haven't had a personnel meeting in a while.
Yeah, you know why? Because when I sent that email out as well, nobody responded, and I think I lost a lot of people, other than George, to I think what happened, and I'm just gonna be just frank with you and Ellen. When we tried to implement some things didn't go well. And people got disgusted and really said, you wasted my time. I don't want to be a part of it. I'm gone. I'm out. And
Well,
so
when you say when we tried to implement things, what do you mean?
when I read the things about the difference between employees and staff and subcontractor and all of that, in the kind of camaraderie that built up on that, the committee got a little disgusted, dysfunctional, and about the people negativity, saying, "Oh, we never had that. It's only staff, or it's either contractors and subcontractors." The difference between the employees, there are no employees. When I tried to explain, we don't have any employees. They're all subcontractors. Well, well, that's another story. But pretty much everybody's pretty much gone.
So I hope that you can maybe write an eNews article about the personnel committee, not saying anything confidential, but the kinds of challenges we're facing. Obviously not personal challenges, but organizational ones. Maybe talk about the value of volunteering with the personnel committee. We definitely need people on the committee. If there aren't more people, you and I can meet, because one way or another, there's a number of things that I hope you can address or get started on. And part of what I'd like to talk to you about is prioritizing what needs doing and what can be done, because obviously if you don't have committee members, you're not going to be able to do as much.
No.
So
And see, and let me interject. And this eNews editor, I think that would be the first one that we would really have, because everybody else was in place and been in place, and we never had to deal with anybody else. But see, the thing about it is, you got all these search committees, and you don't have really a HR, because you have subcontractors. You know what I'm saying? And people mind frame or mindset is set one way. Well, we'll talk offline.
yep.
But yeah, I've been thinking about this ever since I got on that plane. I said,
I'm gonna stop the recording so you can talk.